Sorry, I began the show on mute. My apologies for that. So, welcome to another uh, episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 381. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this evening, Gail from Communities Digital News and NY Fights. Hope to have Daniel from the Inspire Before Boxing News on later. But until he can make it, what's going on, Gail? How you doing?
Hey, we'll cover for Daniel till he gets here. Hey, we got a lot talked about, so we're gonna roll. We're gonna get rolling. Great weekend of boxing.
Absolutely.
Something for everybody
Ab-
this weekend.
right. No real fight previews because it's a really light weekend for the week for the sport in terms of in the ring action. But yeah, this is episode 381 for Pound Box Report. I want to revert back to last week and say again, shout out to Sadets, aka Black Amazon on Twitter. Shout out to In the Ring Christine for the another latest rendition of the latest Love Boxing series, which took place last week. You can go to the Pound for Pound Box Report YouTube page to check that out. But for now, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, site slash blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it pertains to the sweet science, it will get discussed here. If you want to find out all information about P4P Boxing Report, you can go to the site, p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us, you can do so, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On this actual site, you will find links to where to catch us on the socials, be it Facebook slash Meta, be it Twitter, Tumblr, IG, as well as the link to the YouTube channel. Got links to on the site where you a donation link on the site, donation, pay cash, PayPal and Cash Me. Excuse me. Um, Also links to where you can find the podcast on all platforms that are RSS distributed, be it Spotify, be it Anchor, be it Google Podcast, um, Apple Podcast, anywhere and everywhere else between. And also, last but certainly not least, the links on the page to Beachbody on Demand. I can't strongly suggest this enough. Please check out Beachbody on Demand if you're looking to get your health and wellness game right. If you're looking for some creative and fun workouts, please check out Beachbody on Demand at the very least. Take advantage of the 2 week trial. And what the 2 week trial is, for 14 days, you get free access to any and all programs on Beachbody on Demand. Whether you're looking for a challenging workout like 6 weeks of the work, if you're looking just to lift weights, something like Lift 4, um, the old school P90X 1, 2, and 3. Those are excellent programs that still work in 2020, as does the Insanity Asylum series. Whether it's Bar Blend, whether it's Morning Meltdown for those who like to get their workouts done in the morning, or if you're looking for a boxing specific program, please check out 10 Rounds. Let's get things going by recapping what was a loaded October 15th. Last week we had a heavy focus on the women's card in the O2 Arena in London, highlighted by Claressa Shields, Savannah Marshall, the unification bout at 130 between Mikaela and Alycia Baumgardner. We ended last week's episodes talking about those fights. Gail, let's begin this particular episode by recapping those two specific fights, and let's focus on Shields and Marshall first. Shields ended up winning by uh, split decision, I believe. Um, Here's the thing for me, Gail. Uh, Shields, she got off to an excellent start, right? She um, kind of stepped to the bigger punching Marshall. I guess tried to get her respect, but in my opinion, I think the emotions of the entire event, you can tell in her ring walk, she was pumped up, and it showed in the early rounds. I thought though she won the first half of the fight, in my opinion, she's expelled a little bit too much energy, and she kind of faded somewhat. Um, and under Marshall got hit, but the thing that to me she discovered was that Shields couldn't hurt her. She made adjustments of her own, really stepped to Shields and did some bully boxing, and at times Shields had to dig in over the second half, particularly I say rounds 8, 9, and 10. And I see Daniel from Four Boxing News and the Inscriber has joined us. Shields had to bite down. I thought that Marshall really got her attention with a few shots. Shields admitted after the fight that Marshall can really punch, and she said she had issues seeing out of her right eye from round 6 to 10. But she got the decision by 2 points on the one card. That was the difference, in my opinion. That 97-93 card, that was ridiculous. No way the fight was that what no, it's the other fight, my bad. But still, um I thought that Shields won, Gail. I had to win him by 2 points, but in the end, because Marshall came on strong, I thought Marshall was going to get the decision. But the judges was pretty fair and gave the fight to Shields. Your reaction to what you saw, to how Marshall really came on. To me, just like Katie Taylor, and Serrano, that fight lived up to the hype in April of this year. I think this fight did a similar thing. It lived up to the hype. A lot of attention coming in. It was expected that the two ladies really bring it, bring their all into the ring, and they did just that.
They certainly did. I truly believed that in the end, no matter what the talk was, that Shields would rely on her superior boxing skills. That woman threw it all into the fight. She was far, far more offensively aggressive than I thought she would be. She took a bit of a risk to do it. It was a combination of crowd pleasing and I think proving to a lot of critics that she could do it. She's not known as a knockout puncher, unlike Marshall. That is the one thing Marshall has over her. Admittedly, Marshall has not fought the same level of opposition as Claressa. Nevertheless, her knockout rate has been very impressive. Claressa has 2 knockouts. Never mind that she has dominated virtually all of her opponents to date. I think that one little area of criticism bothers her. So she not only wanted to win the fight, she wanted to prove a few things. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. It was an exciting fight, far more exciting than I thought it would be, a little closer than I thought it would be because of Claressa's approach, but it did everything she needed to raise the excitement level about her, raise her stature, and raise the impression of that fight among all fans, the serious ones, the complete degenerates like us, and the casual fans watching, to say, damn, I want to see both of them again. They both handled themselves well, they both gave it their all. They also had Taylor and Serrano to live up to, and I think that might have had just a little bit to do with it. I was fine with the scores. It was clearly Claressa's fight. I was impressed with her stamina because she did lay a lot out in that 10 rounds. I actually thought Marshall looked more gassed at times, but both ladies, put it down, gave it their all, and in the end, I'm pleased to see the respect for athletic accomplishment and the willingness to get in there and fight each other, which is something the women have over almost all the men.
100%. I'll go to you on this one, Daniel. Um, Shields did an excellent job of going to the body. That was the one. That was the one thing while watching the fight with the fellows over at Three Kings Boxing. Yeah, watching the fight with the fellows over at Three Kings Boxing. The body work of Shields was the thing that really impressed me. I wish she would have stayed more to that, stayed more with that in the second half. But again, I think that once Marshall found out that she couldn't hurt her, that Shields couldn't hurt her, she really pressed on the gas and really came on strong. Do you think she started a little bit too late? if she would have started earlier, do you think that she could have put more hurt on Shields, possibly put her down and got the decision here?
Well, that's a little bit. That's a very good question because I think it was in the second or the third round where she probably landed her best right hand, and that's the one punch that you could tell that bothered Claressa. That probably the only time that Claressa really was really bothered visibly in the fight. But what happened is, even if Marshall probably wanted to up the ante, she still had to compete with the volume that Claressa was throwing. Because Claressa was not only throwing more than her, she was landing more cleanly than her and was doing a little bit better counters than most people probably would have thought, considering the usual way that Harper moves. Some Marshall moves around. And that probably is the one thing that she wasn't really able to fight off until she got that second win. Because on one end, if you try to do too much with somebody that has that much faster hand speed than you, than what Claressa had to Marshall, you yourself might get caught in some areas. Because there was some moments, particularly in the fight, where Marshall looked bothered. Marshall looked like she was one good combination from going. Sorry. But if she started probably a little bit sooner, it probably wouldn't have mattered in the fight, but it probably would have mattered for the judges, because that was the whole thing throughout this entire fight. The fact that Claressa was fighting enemy turf, and the UK is always known for dodgy scoring when it involves one of their fighters against a foreigner. So she probably would have gotten a little bit more benefit of the doubt had she started earlier, but it probably would not have done much against just the accuracy and the sheer volume of punches that were coming back at her from Claressa.
This fight was not only a success in terms of the action, right? There was a demand that this be a good fight, and it turned out to be a good fight. This was a success in terms of box office, right? In terms of ratings, um, a lot, not just all boxing fans were, whether you're hardcore or casual, were fully invested. You can tell by the reaction on social media and the numerous tweets, high trending. The fight itself was trending very high on Twitter Saturday afternoon. Right? What was it? 2 million views. Um, the profile on Shields on ESPN Plus. Right? If you were not moved by that, I question your humanity. Real talk. Right? And what boxer Sky Sports did an excellent job before the fight. The ring walks were terrific, and overall, the event knocked it out the park. Shields, her next foray, her immediate future is in MMA, right? But news broke today that Ben Shalom, who is the head of boxer over in the UK, is already talking a rematch for summer of 2023. I know Shield's future for immediate future is in MMA, but she earned um, her guaranteed purse was $1 million, right? And given the fact that this was sold out at the O2, given the television numbers which have not been totally accumulated, I'm guessing that $1 million purse is going to double at the very least in the end. Shields got the decision, close win. Her status is going to go up even more. She's going to become even more of a mainstream name. Does she need to fight a rematch, or is there a demand from public and otherwise that her and Marshall get back in the ring and do it again?
Not immediately, no. First of all, there's the practical matter that she is returning to the PFL. So she's got some MMA fights in her near future. And why not try to double down on another audience, broaden her audience? This has been a very smart thing for her to do. And I do think the cross training has benefited her as well. It's just made her an overall more versatile athlete. And that's what cross training does to a point. Marshall also needs to build herself back up, and stature. She can absolutely do it. One loss is far from fatal. It raised her profile. I'd love to see her come over to the United States for a fight on a visible card, raise her profile here. So both ladies need to take that fork in the road, go their separate ways for 6 months, a year, longer, and perhaps the right time will come along for a rematch, but they both have a lot of other goals right ahead of them, things they can do to make that rematch more attractive. Uh, Damn, I hate the word marinade, but I think I think patience will be a virtue if there's going to be a rematch. Now, it might be that Shields said, hell no, I beat her. I beat her fair and square. Don't need to do it again. But money always talks. So let's see what happens in the next 6 months to a year. I think crowing about a rematch is just a little premature. But you know what? That's what promoters do.
Franchon Cruz was ringside for this fight, right? The ring, the ring, the in the ring attire that you saw Shields wear during the fight, and the dress that Shields walked into the building, um, that was a Franchon Cruz Dezern original piece, right? Both of them. Cruz was at ringside, and after the fight, she was calling for a fight with Savannah Marshall. The two shook hands ringside, and Cruz Dezern was basically said, "Let me and you do it. Let's fight. I'll give you a shot." Do you think that is an alternative for Marshall? Fight Cruz Dezern if she beats her at 68, possibly try to go back down and fight Shields again. Do you think a fight with Cruz Dezern, be it in the States or the UK, could that up her cachet even more?
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
And for the record, for I didn't say, but Franchon Cruz Dezern, who was the undisputed champion at 168 pounds. My apologies.
Yeah, it's another chance for an undisputed competition. Once again, here you have the women being willing to mix it up. They don't hesitate. Um, both of them feel they can do it if Marshall's willing to fight at 168. That would be a little bit of a question for me going up. Um, but shoot, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. Now, I've made no secret of the fact that I'd love to see Franchon and um, Claressa have a rematch of their first fight, which was Claressa's professional debut. I did think that Franchon held her to at least a draw in that fight, although Claressa got the decision. So they may also have some unfinished business, no matter how friendly they are. Heck, we're going to talk about a fight later tonight between two guys who have worked together, known each other a long time, Wilder and Helenius. If they can do it, yeah, Claressa and Franchon can do it. I don't think Franchon will be designing any of Claressa's attire for that fight, though.
What say you, Daniel?
It is enticing in a way because obviously Marshall did show a pretty good size advantage over Claressa in this fight. So going up to 168 probably is not going to be much of an issue for her. What may be an issue is the quickness of when they want to do it, because obviously there's the first time probably in a good while that she's not only gone a full fight, but also getting clearly beat this where there was nothing controversial about this win for Claressa. So building your psyche against somebody that is not only bigger but also has the belts, it would be interesting to see. I wouldn't be against it. The only thing that would probably be an issue is the venue. Because obviously it's one thing for Claressa as to go in and try to just claim the last piece and knowing the history of it. This time around, Marshall is challenging Cruz for all of the belts. Now, they could probably do it in the UK. More than likely, it probably would be in the US. But it would be an interesting fight. I would not hate it one bit. But Gail did mention that little history that Claressa and Cruz have. That might be interesting because, yeah, there's an argument to be made that Cruz should have been given the victory in the debut, but we understood what happened there. Debut, Olympic fighter, fight was really close, but Claressa has improved since then. And she herself is more than willing to go up her weight if need be. However, with the PFL commitments that have to be done, that's probably not what's going to see it probably not until probably 2024 at least, if we see it again. So, hey, for Savannah Marshall, good opportunity.
Indeed. Again, overall, great show. Will we see a rematch? I agree with you, Gil, not immediately, but I think at some point we will. Maybe late 2023. Given how good this first fight was, given how entertaining it was, I wouldn't mind seeing it again. Be it back in England or in the UK, I'd be down for it. On the undercard, of course, the junior lightweight unification bout between IBF WBO champion Mikaela Mayer, WBC champion Alycia Baumgardner. Baumgardner ended up winning by split decision, Daniel, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened, right? These two ladies also talked a whole lot of smack. Um, I thought it would be more of a knockdown drag out, right? But the fight was more tactical. I'm not mad at it. My issue coming in, and part of the reason I was a bit hesitant doing the ladies show, while there was a part of me that was lacking Baumgartner, not only is because of her power, but you know, Mayer tends to start slow from time to time, and the thing that popped in my head in the aftermath was that Mayer started slow and she finished weak. Baumgartner got the early rounds. Let me rephrase myself. She started slow, but she didn't finish strong. Even though on my personal card, I had Mayer winning by 2 points, the fight could have gone either way. She let Baumgartner steal some of the early rounds. She came on towards the end, but when the fight was right there at her fingertips, right there to be grabbed and taken, she didn't. She didn't. She let Baumgartner get away. She had Baumgartner tired. She had Baumgartner, not clearly thinking, not saying that Baumgartner was hurt, but she let Baumgartner get a bit of a second win when the fight was there for her, was right there for her. And that was the disappointing aspect for Mayer, in my opinion. She let it slip through her fingers.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the pace of the fight, part of me, and this has been thrown around a lot, part of me would probably say that it was due to just the fact that they had to maintain weight for an extra month. So that's probably more of a drain that they were not expecting to have at this time of the year. So maybe they didn't would have both Baumgardner and they didn't have the energy that you would expect this type of bitter, like a bitter, also just kind of hatred for a lot of between those two in many ways for it to be produced in the ring. Here's the situation, though, fortunately, and it kind of showed a little bit in how she reacted when the decision was called. At some point, I think in the middle rounds, in the late middle rounds, Mayer's team more than likely convinced themselves that they were ahead in the fight. And that as long as she maintained distance and didn't do much to lose the fight, she would get the decision. You don't do that. You can't do that in boxing. There's in other sports you can kind of coast depending on the opponent. Not in boxing. You can't do that. And Baumgardner took full advantage of that mindset by upping her pace in the later rounds, landing the cleaner shots, and just maintaining herself at a pace where you can tell with the judges that she was the more active fighter. And that's going to be a conversation that Mayer and her team going to have to discuss, because you can tell when they made the decision, she did not agree with it. She walked away pretty much immediately in a huff. And unfortunately for her, I'm guessing that they're expecting for her to be she is the more, in many ways, the more marketable one of the two between her and Baumgardner. But at the end of the day, you can't rest on that. There's a lot of fighters that rest on the fact that, oh, I'm more marketable, I'm more appealing compared to my opponent, and therefore I'm probably going to get more benefit of the doubt. You can't do that in the sport.
Well,
time and time again, people have proven that notion has been proven wrong.
Well, given the endorsement deals that Baumgardner got, I will argue that she's more marketable. I mean, hell, they was airing her commercials, airing her commercials during the fight. They were airing her commercials, even during the Haney Kambosos rematch, which we will talk about in a bit. During the broadcast, Gail, on ESPN Plus, Timothy Bradley expressed disappointment for the lack of action. As I said, they will box a whole lot more than people thought in this fight. Were you disappointed in that you did? It wasn't more of a firefight, and just your overall impressions of the fight. Do you think that Mayer let this slip away? Do you think that that Baumgardner took the fight in the end?
This did not surprise me a bit. In fact, I thought Mayer would try to, just like I thought Claressa would, try to impose her superior boxing skills to keep Baumgardner's power at arm's distance, literally. I had also said before the fight that it was clear to me Baumgardner was trying to rile Mayer up and taunt her into getting into a brawl, get her emotional about it. Neither one of those happened. And I have to wonder if all of the taunting, did in fact intimidate Mayer in some way. She was stiff. She appeared nervous to me. She could not pull the trigger early in the fight. And
feet stuck in the mud.
Yeah, she looked like she was underwater. And that's very unusual for her. And Baumgardner took full advantage of it. To me, although I'll grant that some of those rounds that were close were challenging to score, but to me, there was no question in my mind that Baumgardner won that fight. Absolutely none. And Meyer, I get it. When you suffer your first loss, that's a blow, it's a disappointment. If you really are going in there expecting to win, boy, you better adjust your mindset fast. And I'll grant anyone a pity party for a weekend, but I hope she woke up today saying, all right, maybe I get a few days off. Coach Al, I'll be back on next Monday, next Friday, whatever it is. Let's look at film. Let's, figure out what I need to do to improve and get back on it. Give yourself a focus other than, griping about it or feeling sorry for yourself. Because if you're going to be a champion again, or if you're going to fight at the highest level, there's no room for that. So hopefully she got it out of her system this weekend. Maybe she's going to take a little time off. But I'm here to tell you, Mikaela, you got beat. You got beat fair and square, and that is how it works in athletic competition. Congratulations to Alycia, and I agree with you. I see her as every bit as marketable as Mikaela, more so in a lot of ways. She's very personable. She's willing to engage. She's got a great backstory. And she deserved the win. She just
I
flat
mean,
out.
it was airing her UFOs commercials all even all
Yes,
day and
there
all evening
was.
long.
Absolutely, there was. I mean, and that's not the full measure, but um, to me, marketable. Making someone marketable is the job of people who are professionals at it. If you can't market somebody, you don't know how to do your job. Bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I am disappointed that you haven't heard more from Mayor. She's very active on social media, Twitter and IG. Haven't heard a peep from her on Twitter in the days after the fight. Now there was an interview that popped up on Sky in which she talked about the fight, and she's was adamant that she felt that she won, right, and that she hopes a rematch would happen. Baumgardner immediately after the fight said, "No, no, I'm not. She's not getting another opportunity." And she has spent the past 48 plus hours all in these Twitter boxing streets, uh, doing plenty of taunting, by the way, towards Mayor, and propping herself up, which I'm not mad at. I mean, she has the right to do it. She got the decision. Just like I asked, um, is there a need for a rematch between Shields and Marshall? Is there a rematch when it comes to uh, Mayer and Baumgardner right now? Yeah, I don't know. Baumgardner is insisting on a fight with Huming Choi. Huming Choi, the WBA champion, who's going to fight, I think, this week, right? Um, I don't know how much of a viable option is that, but I'm talking too long. The question is yours on the table, Gail, Daniel. Should a rematch happen?
Unification should happen first. Bob Gardner's right. There's that last belt of the four out there. Um, Belongs to Choi of Korea. I think that's the fight that needs to be made next. Undisputed, unified is, to me, always the ultimate goal if it can be achieved. And there should be no promotional issues involved there in making that fight. Um,
Problem is, Baumgartner tried to make a fight with Choi before Mayer, and Choi was and her team was like, nah. Both, as a matter of fact, both Mayer and Baumgartner have tried to negotiate to fight with Choi. And the one thing that they both agree on, they can't stand Huming Choi. They think that she's a disgrace to the sport, and they think that her team comes to the negotiation table in bad faith. So
well,
she
they
may
got,
want that
you know
undisputed.
what? Sharpen up your negotiating skills. Get over it. That where is Choi going to be content to just hold on to her belt and fight, you know, domestic fights, just showcase fights? That's not where the money is. That's not where the legacy is. She's going to need to think long and hard about that. And let me tell you something, although it was a bit of a different story in that he was seemingly willing, although I'm starting to wonder, what, you end up like somebody, you end up off in the corner by yourself like Demetrius Andrade has. You don't want that. You ruin your legacy. I don't care if you have a belt or not. She will need to put that belt up eventually against somebody. And she can't necessarily pick and choose who that's going to be, other than whose hands are they in? Well, right now they're in Alycia Baumgardner's. Time is not on the side of any athlete at this stage. Somebody needs to have a chat with her and her team.
What say you, Daniel?
Yeah, unification should always supersede when it comes to rematch of this. And yeah, there are no promotional in betweens or blockages in this case because they're both under Eddie Hearn. So, but two factors fall into play. Number one, that is that notion that Choi is going to come in and not really negotiate in good faith, which, depending on where they fight, where the hell, whether they want to hold it in the UK, US, or even if they want to go as far as going to Korea to try to make this fight. That's mainly up to Hearn and Matchroom to try to make this because they're, other than the only other option for Baumgardner is the rematch with Mayer at that point, other than just mandatories. And that's where probably they want to steer towards, not dealing with, especially Eddie. Eddie's probably not going to want to deal with Bob again when he doesn't have to. And when they came Mayer, Baumgardner, the way they were talking, they had to. In this case, he no longer has to. So more than likely, they're probably going to get the unification fight. There's probably going to be a dollar figure thrown. That choice seems going to be more than applicable to take in. And win or lose, that's one undisputed. And then maybe if Mayer gets one or two fights in, a couple of rehab fights during that time, you find yourself ready then for the rematch. So they should unify. There's no promotional hurdles this time. Just get it done.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope Choi comes out of hiding. As I said, she fights later on this week, and I hope to see a fight between Baumgardner and Choi later on this year for undisputed honors at 130. Where Mayer goes, I don't know. I don't know at this point. It's a crushing setback for her. I agree with you, Glenn. I did not agree with the way with how she has handled it since that decision. The fact that she basically stormed out the ring, right, and you haven't really not heard any presence from her in the days afterwards, other than that small little clip that she did with Sky. A little bit more professionalism on her part. I hope to see. But it is what it is, and we'll see where these two ladies will go from here. I'm going to split these next fights coming up. Going back to you, Gail. Let's go to Australia. The rematch between Haney and Kambosos, as we all know, they fought in June of this year. Haney defeating Kambosos to become undisputed champion at 135. Rematch took place back in Australia in Melbourne, right? And look, you said, Gail, that in many ways you felt that this fight is going to be round 13 of the first fight. It was a little bit different. Kambosos tried to switch some things up in the early rounds, had a little bit of success, but once Haney caught on to what Kambosos did, it was a wrap. He stood in the pocket more. He fought with Kambosos more. And to me, Kambosos, he just can't beat this dude. Doesn't matter how he fights. And it showed again in this rematch. I like the way that Haney was able to land with the right hand. Yeah, he got cut more, but the fight was more entertaining. Different fight from the first fight, from their first battle, but Haney was even more impressive in this rematch to me because he had to switch things up, because he had to fight. He decided to bite down and fight. Haney showing himself to be an all-around fighter. I don't want to hear this stuff. Well, he can't punch, he can't do this. He's effective at what he does, and that's what counts at the end of the day. And right now, as of October 17th, when we're recording this live show, he's the man at 135.
Yes, he is, as long as he can make the weight. And that's another question we've got to ask ourselves. But he won by wider scorecards, more definitively. Then he won the first fight, which he also won definitively. You just had to take one look at Kambosos in the post-fight interview. Man, that guy had the pulp beat out of him. What he was thinking.
Looked like a turnip how bloody he was.
He looked horrible. He was red, purple, beat up, hardly recognizable. I mean, seriously. Um, I mean, if his interview hadn't been so clear-minded, you would have been worried for him. But his odd approach, popping from southpaw to orthodox and back, like jumping up and down like a kangaroo. I'm just not sure what he thought he was going to accomplish. Yeah, maybe it worked for a round, but you can't do that and then set your feet and throw a punch. And you are certainly going to have trouble adjusting where you are, get out of the way. So the minute that Haney assessed him and watched what he was doing and figured out where he was going to be and how to get to him, then the problem was he was completely off balance. His feet weren't set. It was just plain stupid. I mean, it won him the first round and it ruined him for the rest of the fight, is exactly what it did. I'll give him credit. He at least tried something, even if it was fairly flawed in its approach. He did seem like he tried to muster more offense, but the fact is, Haney had his number. Haney neutralized him. Kambosos knew what was coming at him. And maybe Haney doesn't have Deontay Wilder one-punch knockout power. Who does? There are very few fighters who can count on one-punch knockout power. Most knockouts are by attrition, by accumulation, stoppage. And Haney is perfectly capable of that. He's in the position that he doesn't need to put himself at that much risk because he's that good. There have been a lot of fighters over the years who have that skill level. The first one you have to think about is someone like Andre Ward. And then you think about someone like Floyd, of course. And what people don't always focus on with Floyd is that the reason he was so exciting, especially in his later years, is, the persona, the presentation, the personality. His fighting skills were equally as technical and defensive, but no one ever called Floyd boring because he was smart enough to put the right marketing package and personality in place around him. Devin's getting there. He will get there. The skills are already there. And we do have to remind ourselves he is 23 years old and a unified, undisputed champion because he was willing to take fights, he was willing to go into enemy territory, and he was willing, in this case, to do it twice just so he could get this fight and prove it. I'm going to be very interested after he says he takes a little vacation time and comes back to figure out which division is he going to stay in. How tough was it for him to really make 135? He repeatedly thanked his nutritionist in the post-fight news conference. I mean, if he thanked that man once, he thanked him 8 times. As well he should. But only they know how hard it was for him to get there. And he did also say after the fight he felt he would have more power at 140, which is a very interesting discussion to have. So we'll have to see what he decides to do. And I will also be very interested in how he continues to make the case for himself being on the top 10 pound for pound list, which really seems to bug him. I do think he's made a very good case for being there. Not in the top half of the list, but he certainly, I think, has crept over the bottom part of that list with that performance.
And he should be ticked off. Look, he's a candidate for Fighter of the Year in 2022. He's an undisputed champion. He's undefeated, right? And given his resume, he should definitely be pound for pound. I ain't gonna call out any names, but there are folks on that current pound for pound list. No matter what boxing publication, mainstream boxing publication you want to talk about, there's some fighters on that list. He certainly needs to be ranked above. I will say that. And yeah, if he shouldn't be too focused on it. But if he has a gripe, hell yeah, he should be there. Now moving forward, he said after the fight that there are big fights at 135 pounds, and more than likely he's going to stay at that weight. But if you just look at the weigh-in and his body, he did look gaunt, emaciated this time around in comparison to the first fight. He's 23 and with high metabolism, so he can get down to that weight and recover, but it can't be for long. I don't see him spending another 18 months at that weight. So the time is now for him. Should he stay at lightweight to get the big fights, be it Lomachenko, who's on the comeback, be it Shakur, who's now fighting at 130, or even a possible fight against Gervonta Davis at 135 pounds, should the negotiations fail with Ryan Garcia. Haney's time is now. His time to strike while the iron is hot. And yeah, he's on top right now. He is the dude at 135 pounds, and I'll give him his flowers right now. Yeah, he's pound for pound in my book. No question about it. I'm going to split these next fights up here. Let's go from Australia to Brooklyn, and I'll go to you, Daniel. The return of Deontay Wilder fought Robert Helenius. As I said last week on the Ladies Show, uh, Helenius is right there. This is Wilder's moment to let the folks know that he is back, and he did that. First round KO. I have my questions in terms of how hard that punch was because it didn't land. It didn't land. It didn't land. He didn't throw it with full force, but Helenius went flat. But again, this is Deontay Wilder, who's arguably the hardest puncher in the sport. Bottom line for me is, Daniel, I got nothing from this. I pretty much knew this was going to happen. The question for me becomes, what's next for Bomb Squad?
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing to watching the first round knockout because from one angle you can barely tell that he threw the right hand. And another angle is a little bit more visible. The angle that PBC actually put out on their Twitter feed made it look more like it was a left hook that got Helenius more than the right hand. So it could be a combination of that 1-2 that ultimately did Helenius in. But this is what it was meant to be. A showcase bout to show that Deontay Wilder still has the best sleeper in the sport. And now the question is, what are you going to do next? Because he's been part of that little gaming chicken that Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk have been playing with each other as far as who's going to relent in negotiations over this fight, even though, like I said, and me personally, I don't think Tyson Fury would ever fight Alexander Usyk because he knows Usyk can beat him. But there are two options on the table now. For Wilder, he did say that he thought that Usyk was going to be in the building, and this was pretty much an audition to try to get that fight. But more realistically, the fight's next is going to be against Andy Ruiz, and that is to me is going to be an interesting fight because obviously weight wise we know what we're getting with Andy Ruiz, but we also know that his hand speed is very good, and when it comes to the heavyweight division, and that's one of the things that can bother Deontay and can't put him on the back foot. The question, though, is does Andy Ruiz now have the punch resistance to take Deontay on, even at this stage? So that's probably going to be what's going to be the next chapter, unless something really comes out of left field from Matchroom, either a fight with Joshua or a fight with Usyk. Pretty much is finally guaranteed it's going to be Andy Ruiz next for Deontay.
I'm not mad at a Wilder Ruiz bout. Ruiz, of course, is coming off of a win over Luis Ortiz. Wilder was in the building, went into the ring during the post-fight interview with Luis, and it seems like all roads are leading to that. There's a part of me that would like to see Wilder face a Joe Joyce. That would really be a test for him because of the factor of Joe Joyce's toughness and chin. Joe Joyce has shown himself to have a chin of steel, a chin of granite, right? And it would be interesting to see if he would have the kind of beard that would take the TNT that or titanium that's in Wilder's fist. Just the fascinating that just that dynamic. I would love to see those two in the ring. But you're right, Daniel. It looks like as of right now, the next fight for Deontay Wilder is a matchup against Andy Ruiz. I'm guessing first quarter of 2023. Move on to the undercard bout here. Look, I challenged the ladies. I challenged you, ladies, Gail, last week to give me a reason to be excited about Caleb Plant and Anthony Dirrell. Even though the fight ended in spectacular fashion for Plant, he took out Dirrell with a one-hitter quarter of a left hook in round 9, right? I'm still not impressed. And I know that digging of the grave thing that Plant did afterwards got a lot of attention. But my thing is this, Gail. Okay, he did that against Dirrell, but he did that also against a guy who's 38 years old, past his prime. There are better fighters out there calling this dude Plant out. Namely David Benavidez, who we will talk about in a bit. Fight him, beat him, then I'm impressed. I was mid to this fight. I was ready to this fight last week, and I still feel that way in spite of the highlight reel KO.
Listen, Plant got his rehab assignment. He took care of business. Check, done. Good for him. He did what he needed to do. How much are we supposed to readjust our overall assessment of him and his career based on this fight? Not a lot. Not a lot. Watching the rounds before the knockout, it was every reason to go get your drink refreshed before a Wilder fight. Check your phone, go get the laundry out of the
Right.
washer. It was one of those.
I don't want to hear a complaint about Devin Haney being
Yeah,
boring while that fight was going on at the same time. Come
yeah,
on.
right, exactly. In fact, I was covering the Haney card, so I watched Plant and Dirrell after the conclusion of the Wilder fight and thought, ugh. I had known about the knockout, but I confess I might have fast forwarded through a few of those rounds. I mean, he did what he needed to do. I'm willing to temper my judgments other than the low class act of celebration when a man is hurt. Other fighters have done it too. I hate it just as much. Once you recognize, once that adrenaline burst goes through you, I get it. I've had it. I've had words with other fighters who've later admitted, yeah, it's just the rush of the win. But the minute you turn around and recognize that your opponent is down and hurt, you need to knock that shit off. And he just literally dug himself a deeper hole. But controversy sells. I hate to say it, but this will be a subject that will draw attention to him in his next fight. Now, the fight we really want to see, all of us, is the two guys remaining at super middleweight with a legitimate claim to be the next challenger to Canelo Alvarez, and that's David Benavidez with Plant. Now, I don't think anybody wants to see Canelo Plant 2 is the problem. If Plant wins, it's not impossible. Everybody's a live dog in the ring.
Or
An underdog they are.
Or
Damn.
just give me David Dirrell and Plant. Not this.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we'll see whether that gets made. Plant has now had his return to the ring fight, his knock off the rust fight. So there really shouldn't be any excuse. Let's see what happens with Benavidez, and we're going to talk a little more about that in the news segment to come.
Indeed, and let's go to the news portion of the particular of this particular episode here. News broke about this. News broke late this afternoon. I wrote about it for Three Kings Boxing. That Josh Taylor, who is a champion at 140 pounds, former undisputed champion, he and Jack Catterall have agreed to a rematch February of next year. It's going to take place in the UK. Location due to be determined. Daniel, these two fought one of the more controversial bouts of this year in February of 2022. A lot of people felt that Catterall won, but it was Taylor who got the decision. Right. In the months afterwards, Taylor has vacated 3 of the 4 belts that he held. He's the current WBO champion. Catterall has been desperate to get a rematch. It looks like he's going to get it. Your reaction?
What are you reaching out to me? I'm sorry, I was
Yeah, that was to you,
sneezed a little
Daniel.
bit. Well, it should have happened. It should have happened time ago. It should have happened for all the belts because Catterall earned that right in the first fight. But we know what happens. We're getting pretty good fights out of it because of the situation. But it's what Josh Taylor need. It's what he needs to do because finishing this out, leaving it hanging there while trying to go to welterweight and trying to get either Bud or Spence to pay attention to him, it wasn't going to be a good look either way, especially in the UK, especially in that area where domestic rivalry gets taken up to an nth degree. So it's good that they made this fight. While a bit disappointing that it's not for all the belts, it probably benefited boxing better that Taylor vacated the belts that he needed to vacate because that did open up more avenues for other fighters, mainly, Rougarou and Cepeda. And let's see how Josh Taylor how can adjust to this because now the thoughts in his head, like he's no longer just a crisp, clean fighter that's gonna walk through and skate through when it comes to fights. Catterall showed how you can fight him, how you can counter him, and took a good amount of dent in that armor that Taylor had. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Catterall, tricky style, kind of exposed Taylor a bit. Who the thing about Taylor is that he doesn't throw a good jab. He doesn't have a good jab, right? And he is kind of a tweener in a bit uh, between fighting inside and outside. And Catterall gained control early. Taylor didn't do a good job of adjusting. Got put down in that fight. He rallied a bit late, but yeah, even most UK pundits, even most even most UK pundits felt that Catterall won. There was an investigation by the British Boxing Board of Control afterwards, but still, yeah, in that neck of the woods or even here, there's a general consensus. Despite I don't know Andre Ward, he had Taylor winning. Most disagree with him, and uh, Taylor has dubbed his trainer Ben Davis, and he's going to be working with having a new corner for this upcoming fight. And yeah, um, can Taylor make the necessary adjustments? Can he switch things up this time around? Can Catterall uh, stay at that same level? It's going to be interesting. Yeah, February 2023, excuse me. We're going to see a rematch between Taylor and Catterall for the WBO title at 140 pounds. Last week, Gail, when we was talking about Fernando Martinez and his rematch win over German Ancajas, Kazuto Ioka's name came up in large part because I was asking whether Martinez deserves to be up there with who I consider the big four at 115 pounds, and I put Ioka in that in that group of the big four at junior bantamweight with Gallo Estrada, with Chocolatito Gonzalez, and Bam Rodriguez, right? Well, this is this it's been rumored for a while that Ioka was in negotiations for a unification bout with Joshua Franco, WBA regular champion and younger brother of Bam. Well, it was finalized today that they are indeed Ioka and Franco are going to fight over in Japan December 31 on New Year's Eve. Part of a tradition over in Japan where their domestic world champions engage in a series of world championship bouts, big bouts over there in Japan, in the land of the Orient. Your reaction, on paper, a pretty decent matchup. And if Ioka wins, to me, it puts even another notch on what is an impressive belt, one of the better resumes in all of boxing, regardless of divisions.
Well, this is the division, one of the few in boxing on the men's side, where the top names challenge each other repeatedly. And the few losses among them, whether it's Ioka, Estrada, Gonzalez, Rodriguez, who doesn't have any yet, Franco, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They deliver high level, exciting, quality fights. Always good to watch. I can't even think of a bad fight I've seen among the top competitors, in the flyweight, super flyweight divisions. Um, and Ioka's part of this generation coming up behind kind of the top, the classic four that we've had for so long, which is Estrada, Gonzalez, Quadras, and Sorungbasai. Now you've got Franco, you've got Ioka, you've got Rodriguez, and I just couldn't love it more. This is a tradition in Japan to have a big ticket um, competitive boxing card on New Year's Eve. I wish we did that in the United States. I'd love to adopt that custom. Good for Franco being willing to go over to Japan. It's great for him to have exposure in front of that audience who really knows their boxing. They love it. Boxing's a very popular sport in Japan. And it's just all good. Now, over the weekend, on the undercard of the Haney Kambosos 2 fight, both Maloney brothers were in action. Both won and both said, let's get on a New Year's Eve card over in Japan. So we may see one of them join in as well. I love the attitude, and it gives the boxing fans what we want and what we deserve.
And for those who have not seen Ioka fight, one of the more complete boxers in the world, right? Uh, 1, 5, 8, 12, four division champion, 108, one unification champion at 105, is also won titles at 108 and 112. Do yourself a favor and check out a lot of his check him out on YouTube. The knockout win over three division champion Kosei Tanaka, just terrific. One of my favorite fights to watch in 2020. Talk about taking someone who came in highly regarded. Tanaka did in Ioka. Just gave him a boxing lesson that night. Took him to school, and I'll say here what I said last week. I think that Ioka, even though there is an asterisk over his name because of in the past he avoided a contest of a showdown with Roman Gonzalez. As it stands right now, I will put Ioka in the mix. I feel he would have a 50-50, 60-40 chance against Roman, against Gallo, against Jesse Bam Rodriguez. I think he is that good. And yeah, unification bout with Franco. This is all good for me. I love it. I love it. Going to you, Daniel. We talked a lot about David Benavidez while talking about Caleb Plant's win. Benavidez is in negotiations to fight Jose Uzcategui January 2023. I have to be honest here. Just like I was indifferent that Plant is fighting Dirrell, I'm indifferent here of a fight between Benavidez and Uzcategui. I get it. Benavidez is interim champion WBC at 168. And he's your hardcore fan. When it comes to hardcore fans, Benavidez is one of their favorite fighters because he's good behind the mic and he's entertaining in the ring, right? He's talented. He's willing to go in there and trade. He just has one of those attractive styles, for lack of a better word. But Uzcategui, You can't give me a better you can't give me a better opposition than that. Come on.
All right. Well, this is the PBC, and the PBC gives us what the PBC gives us when it comes to this situation. But Gail mentioned it when we talked about Caleb Plant. The fight, if it's not going to be against Canelo, the only fight of consequence that you can have for David Benavidez is with Caleb Plant. Now, obviously, you really can't do that right now, considering he just fought, and you're at this point at this stage where you have to be as active as possible. And with David, given the given the situations outside of the ring and some of the things he got caught with outside of the ring, the more he's actually being involved, being in training, the better it is for him overall. So, and it's never really good to wait on somebody that, in this case, Canelo, who you're on his time, he's not on your time. So it is what it is. Uzcategui, yeah, we know it's well past what his prime would be, but he was, at least on paper, you can say, yeah, he was a former champion. One of the tougher tests at super middleweight. It's just that right now at that stage, he's at that stage where that star has long faded. It'd be a good name for David to get again on his resume. But yeah, it is a little bit indifferent on it now. If Caleb Plant shows up, that'll be fine. Or if Canelo shows
Yeah,
up, that'll be fine. But it is what it is.
yeah. Again, it's there, but again, I'm pretty Reggie feeling rather meh on this fight. If this leads to if this leads to a fight against Plant, right? If this leads to a fight against David Morrell, who's fighting next month, and Benavidez and Morrell have traded back and forth words with each other about fighting either late about fighting in 2023. Okay, I get it, but this right here is just a standalone. Yeah. Again, I expect more at this point. Um, and I think we're going to start to end the show on that particular note. Uh, I'm going to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk. Daniel from For Boxing News, and the inscriber for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk professional wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, as training camp gets as the NBA season is on the verge of beginning. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter, Rockstone99, RAWKUZ99. Definitely catch me on there. It is, like I said, we're starting to wind down. Little of the box calendar, still a few good fights still in the horizon. And we still, unfortunately, we still on Bud Spence watch. Even though I don't think
Yeah.
we're not gonna get it anytime soon, we're still on Bud Spence watch.
Yeah, quick word here, Gail, because you lost connection with us. Quick word on your reaction to Benavidez and Uzcategui. Are you as indifferent as Daniel and I are?
I don't, doesn't give me a chill down my spine, but take a look at
That's
the,
a nice way of
I
that's a slick
mean,
way of putting it.
yeah, if you look at the current, top 20 or so of the super middleweight division, who else is there? I mean, yes, Plant's the obvious target. No question about it. But otherwise, who's left? Yeah, there's some names on there that are, sort of interesting to take a look at, but they're not realistic. Do we really think that um, there's any way they're going to put Benavidez up against somebody like, say, Edgar Berlanga? Oh, hell no. Well, he's in the top 10. Daniel Jacobs, he's done. Daniel Jacobs is done. John Ryder, believe it or not, is currently, at least per the BoxRec rating system, which is flawed. Um, he's right now the guy just behind Canelo. Um, I wouldn't mind seeing Caleb fight somebody like a Carlos Gongora, but the problem is Gongora has very little name ID, especially in the United States. He's
Yeah.
not going to fight Akhmedov, who's dangerous. And, then you keep looking down the list and you think, well, what's makeable? Uzcategui is known, is makeable, has a fan base. Yeah, he's got 4 losses. It really shocks me, though. He's only 31 years old. I figured he was a lot longer in the tooth than that. He's just 31. So, yeah, I guess I have to, in the end, say I don't completely hate it. And I am at least glad that Benavidez isn't going to sit out the rest of the year. He's going to get his ass back in the ring, whatever it takes to do that. Whoever needs to stand across from him, it's makeable. It's fairly realistic. Uzcategui is in the top 20. Better than sitting out the rest of the year. That sounds like damning it with faint praise. It probably is, but it's the best of the alternatives, of which there are very few.
Yeah.
And with that, and with
And with
that,
that, for those who want to talk boxing, for media, or for those who want to check you out occasionally on TMZ Live, Gail from Communities Digital News NY Fights, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
well, it's nyfights.com. nyfights.com is where all of my reporting work now lives. Both recaps, reports, preps for fights, and an occasional rant under my name. And you can catch me, of course, on boxing Twitter at PR Pro San Diego. And yeah, not a whole lot of high level fights. There are cards around the world. To be boxing is always still busy. We do have a DAZN card, a Golden Boy Fight Night coming up this Thursday with very flashy young lightweight prospect Floyd Schofield and female junior flyweight talent Annabelle Ortiz, who I'm very interested in seeing. And there is a Showbox card this weekend, along with the Thompson boxing card this weekend. So not every enjoyable fight card has to be at the absolute highest levels. Take in a prospects card or a club card in the next couple of weeks. There are quite a few while the rest of the world's watching playoff baseball. Go Padres!
Your Padres actually did it. Congratulations. Your Padres did it.
Dodger
They
killer!
they beat the Dodgers, the team with the best
Oh, they are
record.
whining. They are whining.
Yeah, that crowd was bananas out there in
I'm
those 2 games. So
telling you.
congratulations.
Know a lot of people who were there. You could hear that thing from your TV, and I swear I'm 17 miles north of the ballpark. I think we could all hear it. So I would say that it's going to be a very exciting series with Philly, who was also an underdog, and what'll be fun is to see the two Nola brothers fighting for their team to win, going up against each other, the pitcher and the catcher. It should be a good time. It's fun for our city, which is not exactly known as a professional sports powerhouse. So going to be a lot of good fun. And
Absolutely.
Hey, if we lose, maybe we'll lose. We still live in San Diego.
For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance on IG, you know what it is, Brother JRSC. As I said at the beginning of the show, for those who want to check out all things pound for pound boxing report, the site is the place to go to. p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with questions, suggestions, please do so. P4P Boxing at P4PBoxingReport.com. On the site, you'll find links to check us out. Where to find us all over the socials, links to the Twitter page, links to the Facebook page, links to the YouTube channel, links to the IG page, and as well as Tumblr. Also, you can find links to where to catch the show on all RSS feed, Fed distributed platform outlets, be it Anchor, be it Google Podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, Spreaker, anywhere and everywhere else in between, with the exception of Amazon. Right. Also links to where you can donate on the page, Cash Me and PayPal donation links. Get your words right, Mike. Let donation be the best nation. Last but certainly not least, links to Beachbody on Demand. And again, if you are looking to reach your health and wellness goals, please check out Beachbody on Demand. Take advantage of the 14-day trial, and that is for 14 days. You will get free access to E&L programs on Beachbody on Demand. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, please check out 10 Rounds, which I've went through it a couple of times. It's very, very good. Because no real boxing, no significant boxing. Gail mentioned some cards, but we may take next week off and convene in a couple of weeks. But this particular episode mainly recap with a little bit of news. If you like what you heard this evening, please hit that like button. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It'll help our overall algorithms and get us closer to being monetized. If you check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please make sure to leave a comment. If you check us out on Apple Podcasts, leave a review, 5-star review will get read on the show. Once again, this is episode 381 of Pound for Pound Box Report. For Gail of Communities Digital News NY Fights, for Daniel for Boxing News and the Inscriber, I'm your host Michael. We will see you next time. Y'all have a good one.